Well, everyone, on behalf of REOTM's Transportation Museum, I'd like to welcome you to our first and inaugural exhibit chats. Today's exhibit chat is going to be focusing on the 1949 to 1953 rocket V8 engine. And we've got someone here who's part of our volunteer crew and is one of the individuals with a great deal of lifetime experience in servicing and working with Oldsmobile engines. Jerry Garfield, who is going to shine a light on this unique piece of our exhibit and offering of the history of the evolution of Oldsmobile engines. Jerry, thank you for giving us a chat today.
And thank you for allowing me to do this. This is going to be a little different. I'm going to bring some personal experience to this. I'm not going to talk about the engine and all the wonderful things about it, which there are many. This was quite an engineering feat back in the day. And certainly Charles Kettering deserves a lot of credit. This is his baby, as well as Oldsmobile's. But what I'm going to bring to you is the viewpoint of somebody who grew up in a gas station, which is me, and I started working in my father's gas station when I was 8 years old, which was 1952, in a middle-class neighborhood of Cleveland, Ohio. 49, 50, 51, 52 Oldsmobiles had been on the road, and our gas station had 4 good-sized bays. And if I was in the back of the building when I was, say, 11, 12 years old, I used to play a game with one of my father's helpers. A car would come up to the station for gasoline, and I could recognize what kind of car it was. Oldsmobile engines, after they'd been in use a while, were noisy. The hydraulic valve lifters no longer maintain zero lash, and there was rocker arm noise and what have you. Yes, I'm sorry to say it wasn't extremely reliable, and researching this for today, I discovered why. The information in the owner's manual and the service manual is lacking on how to properly service this engine. Number one, the type of engine oil that should have been used, and I'm sure a lot of people then knew, it was called heavy-duty oil. Today we call it detergent oil. It was developed for the armed services during the Second World War, because their vehicles would operate at very low speeds and sludge was a problem. Well, after the war, that oil started to become available for regular public use, and that's what should have been used in these engines. Unfortunately, as I found out, there's no mention at all in the owner's manual or the service manual about the quality of the oil that should be used. It does say that you have to change it at least every 2,000 miles. It doesn't specify when to change the optional oil filter. Most cars did have the optional oil filter, but it would probably be a good idea then to change the oil filter when the oil was changed. But I remember back then that rarely did people change oil when they're supposed to. And when the car became a second owner car, or even third owner, which was not unusual after 3, 4, 5 years, it was the cheapest thing available. And as I said, these engines clattered quite a bit. The other thing that we noticed was that as they accumulated miles, literally oil would drip from the oil fill cap. And why was that? Well, there's no recommendation in the owner or service manual about servicing the crankcase ventilation system. It says there is one, but doesn't say what to do. The incoming air is supposed to be filtered through a wire gauze that's oiled, and the exit is this pipe, which is called a road draft tube. But with the optional heavy-duty air cleaner, oil bath air cleaner, At the end of this pipe was another filter to filter exit air, blow-by gases. To this little kid at the time, I thought that was pretty unusual. Why would you filter something that's definitely dirty? This other car does have that filter, and unfortunately you probably won't be able to see it. But I realized in snooping around that that filter at the road draft tube, as it was called, would clog, and crankcase pressure would build up. Oil would start to leak out of seals, gaskets, and when it really became excessive, oil would start to drip out of this cap. So what I used to do with customer permission, not clean that exit filter, I would take a pair of needle nose pliers and rip the filter material out of the canister that held it, but leave the canister on the pipe because it was in the airstream, and as the car was going down the road, there'd be a partial vacuum formed at that exit to help remove the blow-by gases from the crankcase. The other thing that happened to this engine, because again, it wasn't being properly serviced or the correct oils being used, the rocker arms would become noisy, not just because of the lifters, but due to lack of oil. What occurred, there's an oil passage that comes up from the block to the cylinder head, crosses over in a 90-degree fashion, and then goes up to the rocker arms. Well, that 90-degree crossover would plug with sludge. It was impossible to clean it unless you remove the cylinder head, but someone wisely came up with a better idea. It was an oiling kit, and I used to get those from the local auto parts store. It consisted of 2 pre-cut lengths of copper tubing and the necessary fittings, and these studs that went down into the rocker arm, they would be removed and hollow studs installed, and then the oil lines hooked up to that stud, and now oil would flow through the rocker arms. So the other engines had that problem too. But if you own one of these cars, be sure and service the crankcase ventilation system. And today's oils are much better than what was available then. And this is a can from back then. And detergent oils were called heavy-duty oil. It says ML, MM, so forth and so on, DG for diesel. And now we have a totally different set of specifications. Don't do what some people would say, well, it didn't come with detergent oil when it was new. No. Use detergent oil in everything. I thank you for your time.